Hi, everyone. When someone attempts to shame us, remember three things. One, remember you are not them and they are not you. Number two, it's not about you, it's about them. And number three, when we have internal shame attacks or self-alienation, these are things that I can control, not them. Those of us who experience shame attack from others, as well as internally within us, have shame that lies dormant within us from growing up from shame-based relationships and shame-based families. It's common, as we know, that shame seeks shame. Shame will seek out others who tend to be shaming. We've been shamed, we feel shame, we seek out shame. So shame seeks shame, which is why it's so important for us to work on that and to reduce and resolve our shame issues. A shame-based family of origin is one in which there's neglect, criticism, addiction, shaming communication, abuse, a lack of affirmation, and a lack of unconditional love. Neglect is a passive shame. Conditional love is a passive shaming tool as well. When we experience shame attack from others, one of the first things we want to think is, I am not them and they are not me. So whenever someone comes to you and say, I don't know how you could let yourself get that way. Shaming. Whenever you hear shoulds and oughts and you should have those are shaming statements. Well, you should have known better. That's a shaming statement. Always remember, I'm not them, they're not me. I don't control their thoughts or feelings. I don't cause their thoughts or feelings. I refuse to fuse with them around this shaming, emotionally fuse with them or enmesh. I will observe their words and behavior, but not absorb it. Tell yourself, I want to watch how someone tries to shame another person. Take an observer's role. If you feel a parent or a friend or sibling or someone close is going to be shaming you, take the observer role of, hey, I'll watch someone trying to attempt to shame me. And if we can take in a more observer role, we don't absorb it as much. A narcissistic dad says to his daughter, you are my 26-year-old daughter and you are still living with your mother, trying to pay for a graduate degree and a home of your own someday? When will you grow up? Shaming statements. Well, Dad, I don't see it as immature. I'm so happy I'm planning well for my financial future and that I'm lucky enough to live with Mom for a while so I can accomplish that. These are my goals, Dad. They may not be yours. And again, if you notice, I'm going back to, I am not them, they are not me. The daughter could also refer to the dad or respond to the dad, well, I wish I could see it that way, Dad, but I just don't. Or, you sound so disappointed, Dad. That must feel very uncomfortable. Does it worry you, Dad, that I'm living with Mom right now? Sorry, Dad, it doesn't worry me. And all of those statements take into our awareness that I am not them and they are not me. Jack, who has a wife, Sarah, And Jack shames his wife with this comment. What does it feel like, Sarah, to have ruined my day off? You should have known this would mess up my whole day. Should have known, shaming. Whenever you hear should, always think of shaming. You should have known. Sarah learns to calmly and matter-of-factly remember that I'm not him, he's not me. Jack, I didn't know I had. In other words, I didn't know I had ruined your day. I didn't do anything that would have necessarily messed up your whole day. Those are your feelings, they're not my feelings. I have no idea why it feels that way to you, Jack. I don't see it happening that way. I don't see this day coming together that way. Well, Jack, if you need to believe that I ruined your day off, I'm just not sure I can change that. I wish I could. Well, Jack, if I were all-knowing, Jack, I would have known this. But I'm not all-knowing. Jack, do you believe it was done on purpose? Jack says, yeah. Jack, I don't remember having that purpose. I don't remember having it at all. And if you notice, Sarah's not arguing with Jack. She's either telling about her experience or affirming what his experience is. But she's not arguing with him. You can have your experience, Jack. I can have mine. Secondly, shame attacks from others are not about you, but about them and their emotional space between you. Mason and Fossum, in their book Facing Shame, which I would recommend, shame is an inner sense of being completely diminished or insufficient as a person. And again, when somebody says, well, you should have known better, that's very diminishing. It communicates you're just insufficient as an adult or a person or a kid. Or as Gershom Kaufman states, to feel shame is to feel seen in a painfully diminished sense. He has a very interpersonal way of thinking about shame, and I would recommend his book called Shame by Gershom Kaufman, Kaufman. It might be slow reading, but there's some really great gems in there for those who really want to dig into shame. I remember talking with him and we had some conversations, and he was a very interesting author. I would really recommend him. I might add to this definition, these feelings of feeling diminished or insufficient are a means to manage the relationship in a way that enmeshes or fuses me to the other person emotionally. And again then, when we enmesh, I lose me. Enmeshment means not enough self, not enough I-ness, too much we-ness. And that's what shame often does. It's to diminish your I-ness and for you to fold into our we-ness. And we want that dynamic to happen in that pattern. Because I'm going to judge you and shame you, and you just need to fit right into that. Well, that means you have to leave yourself at the door. And that's not healthy. And I consider this is fusion without closeness. In other words, I want you to fuse with me, but it's not truly closeness. It's emotional fusion. Just like when a couple is overly enmeshed, they have such a difficult time relating to one another because there's not enough separateness. So actually, they're over close, which feels like no closeness. And that's the paradox that family systems thinking can help us see. That enmeshment is over closeness or fusion without the closeness. When you diminish myself or see me as insufficient, I lose my sense of self and fold into you and into the relationship field or the relationship Wi-Fi. I call it the Wi-Fi that goes out. Shame attacks are used by others when they cannot or don't know how to influence you in a positive way. They use fusion or control to get you to change or comply. And again, that's the purpose of the shaming, is to get you enmeshed in them and you complying. And remember, I am not you, you are not me. This shaming is about you, it's not about me, though it is about us. It's not about me, it is about you, and it also is about us and what you want us to do emotionally in the system. You want us to blend or fuse. And I don't want to lose my sense of self in this. They reenact someone who's shaming, their own shaming they received growing up, and they reenact it with you because it feels normal. So it's not about you, it's about their own shaming that they're passing along. Shame-based parenting is the most widely used parenting approach today, I believe. I see it all the time. I go to the grocery store, I go to the supermarket, I go to the Walmart or Target or all the places that you can go and shop. And I see parents using shaming as a way to control or discipline their kids. Now, it is effective. It can work. The problem is it also sends other messages that the parents may not be aware of and also may cause problems in the future. I myself have experienced shaming. I've experienced bullying, which is shaming, weight shaming, message shaming, meaning the message or the theory and the things that I've wanted to share with all of my viewers. Looks shaming, in other words, how I look. Past shaming. Oh, but you weren't perfect back then, that many years ago, Jerry, and you did this. Past shaming. Choice shaming. Well, how dare you go and rent a car like that? That's just being greedy and selfish, and like they don't even know that I saved up all this money to do that, and I don't play golf, but I'm going to try to do this one thing that I'd like to do. They're doing choice shaming, vacation shaming, financial shaming. There's all kinds of ways people can shame us. Career shaming. My mom used to career shame in this way. She would say, well, I know you're helping people as a therapist at that time. And, but I just think it's so sad that you're not using God's gift of your singing or musical ability to help other people. And again, happy that I'm doing what I'm doing, but also shaming me for not doing what she thinks God wants me to do. And that I should feel really bad since I have this talent that what's wrong with me for not giving it to other people, showing to other people? Well, because that's between God and me. And it's not between my mom and me, it's between God and me. And I told my mom, well, Mom, you're just going to have to pray harder. You're just going to have to tell God, he's going to have to tell me. Because right now, he and I are pretty comfortable with what I'm doing. But thanks for worrying. So, again, let them have their shaming beliefs and words about you. Just don't absorb them. I've even said to myself, when I'm being shamed, I know you want me to get close, or you want to absorb me, but I'm not choosing that right now. Because when someone's being critical or shaming, they want to pull you into their emotional field. And they want you to be them. They want that we-ness to be really strong. No, I need a healthy balance of we-ness and I-ness. And they're asking for too much we-ness when they do shaming. Shaming in family systems language is pursuit. And that's why I like to talk about it in this way of the relationship dynamics. Because when someone shames you, they're pursuing you. Also, do you know when someone's angry with you, they're pursuing you. When someone won't forgive you, they're pursuing you. When someone can't get over you, they're still pursuing you. And that's the nature of systems and family systems. And so, shaming in family systems language is pursuit. You're chasing me. I experience then myself as an extension of you. When we get shamed, we experience ourselves as an extension to the other person. I don't want to be an extension to you. You may have opinions about what I should have done, what I should be doing, why I'm so bad for not doing that, you may have all those opinions. But I'm not an extension of you. So you need to stay on your side of the tennis net on this tennis court. And you can listen to other videos where I talk about the tennis net and the tennis court. Someone who's shaming you is jumping over the tennis net and into your face. Or another way of saying it is, they've thrown a rope around you and are trying to pull you over the net to their side on the emotional game field. And I don't want to go there. I want them to stay on their side of the net, me to stay on my side of the net. Thirdly, internal shame attacks are self-alienation attacks. Not only do shame attacks come from others, but they can also occur inside us. Our internalized shame can erupt at different times. I think it could be said that external shame attacks are pursuing in nature. Just like I mentioned, it's a pursuit. Even hate is a pursuit. Hate and love are kind of love in terms of closeness or attachment. Hate and attachment are the same side of the same coin. The opposite side is neutrality or detachment. Because you can either pursue someone with love or pursue someone with hate. But you're pursuing with both. So as I said, external shame attacks are pursuing in nature. So also are internal shame attacks. Who are we trying to pursue when we have a shame attack? Ourselves. But it comes out in an alienating way, a shaming way. Actually, we can read them as a call to comfort, partner, and love ourselves. I believe this is our broken way to communicate to ourselves. When I have felt a deep shame trigger and deeply shaming, and maybe no one had done anything, it may have been something, we'll talk about how we can have internal shame attacks. I feel bad about myself. That's myself reaching out to myself in an unhealthy way to take care of me. For those of us who grew up in shame-based families, we become shame-bound. And then whenever we feel any need or drive, we can immediately feel ashamed. You shouldn't have wants. You shouldn't have needs. You shouldn't have any drives. You should feel shame immediately for those. And I think it's good if we can read them in a way that, it's not that I need internal shaming. It's that internal self or inner child's trying to get my attention to provide love, comfort, solace for me. We then feel the rejection of the self while yearning for the self. We reject ourselves, think of it as yearning for the self. And, what are some helpful antidotes to self-shame attacks? What can we do? Refuse to abandon yourself. That is critical. Refuse to abandon yourself. No matter how you feel, no matter how bad you feel about you, the worst thing we can do is abandon ourselves. The best thing we can do is not abandon ourselves, even if we're feeling this shame, or feeling down, or feeling stupid, or feeling worthless. If I don't abandon myself, I have a much better opportunity to come out of the attack. Initiate self-love and self-compassion. So we need the emergency kit of self-love and self-compassion. Plan. Be ready to love yourself. How would you love yourself? How would you show yourself self-compassion? One example I think of, I remember having a boss. I worked at a hospital, and I had this boss who was pretty shaming and pretty guilt-producing. I mean, she couldn't hardly even manage without guilting and shaming. And so I already knew it was going to happen. So I'm going into the office with them, and I decide I'm just going to hold my hand. I'm going to keep it down low where no one's really noticing it, and I'm going to hold my own hand, meaning, Jerry, I'm here for you. No matter what she says, no matter what happens, I still love you and I'm here for you, no matter what comes to her mind or her head. And then also realizing I am not her and she is not me. And then we can also work on and practice inner bonding, like Margaret Paul says in her book, Inner Bonding. And, using a teddy bear can be a way of comforting ourselves when we have shame attacks. But remember, when you have a shame attack, remember it's a flag going up saying you're needing something. It's not you're needing to be shamed. It's that yourself is needing you at that time. You also can reassure yourself that you're not going anywhere. And I remember telling myself, Jerry, I'm here for you, and I'm never going to leave you again. I'm not going anywhere. That was some of the most comforting words I ever heard from myself, to myself. And that made all the difference in the world. Because if I can love me, I'm much less worried about what other people think or do. What I had trouble with is when I would abandon me, now I would feel all is lost. Because now I don't even have me. And so I'm left out there standing all alone, isolated, shamed, diminished, and no one's there for me. Not even me. Well, that's where we have to begin to change. Work on your shame with a coach or a therapist. I like Gershom Kaufman's statement that you want to find someone, a sponsor, a coach, a therapist, a pastor, who can communicate this. Yes, I see your shame, your feelings of stupidness and worthlessness, and I'm neither afraid nor ashamed to approach. That's who we need to find to help us with our shame. I would recommend any of the coaches that work for me. They're excellent with shame. I would also suggest that you research shame in the 12-step literature if you're connected to any of the 12-step groups. Don't isolate with shame. Talk to other trusted friends, therapists, and coaches. Read Facing Shame by Mason and Fossum. Read Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw. And then Shame by Gershon, Gersen, Kaufman, Kaufman. He talks about the interpersonal nature of shame, and we want to rebuild that interpersonal connection. And remember, it is important to know who we are and who we are not. I am not my shame. I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day and be wise. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me today in this live stream, and for those who might watch this later. Today, I want to talk about healthy intimacy. And I know many people struggle with this particular topic and this issue, as I have as well. It's healthy intimacy people are looking for. They're always coming to me and saying, Jerry, I want to find somebody I can have healthy intimacy with. I don't do healthy intimacy well. Intimacy has not been something that's worked out well for me. And what I've found for those who share those kinds of things, as I did as well, because I didn't know how relationships operated. I didn't know how they functioned. And so I'm just kind of in the dark, trying to find my way to healthy intimacy, hoping I will bump into it or it will just fall in my lap or I'll just get lucky. Whereas I don't think healthy intimacy is just simply a matter of luck. I wish it were, and maybe I'd win the lottery with it, or thought I could win the lottery with that. And oftentimes we also can set our sights on somebody that we care about or would like to be in a healthy relationship or an intimate relationship with, but we don't have the skills to participate on the level that they might be able to participate in terms of intimacy. And so oftentimes we'll feel thwarted. Well, everybody I've tried, it just doesn't work. Or it'll be the opposite. We'll have dysfunctional realities and dysfunctional awareness about relationships and choose people who are not as intimate as we are and what our abilities are. And so they're down here and I'm up here, and we're trying to make this relationship work and it doesn't work. The first that I described was I'm down here and they're up here and I'm trying to make it work. Healthy intimacy is when we both share a kind of a similar maturity about healthy intimacy, or the skills for that, or the maturity for that, or the self-differentiation for that. And I believe people can increase their ability to be more intimate and increase their ability to be self-differentiated and mature. That changes the whole relationship dynamics. Dating, finding someone, it really does transform that. And I've over 45 years of working with people, I have seen how many people have come and all of their relationships were just horrible or very dysfunctional. Then they begin to learn the realities of healthy relationships from a systems perspective, and then I end up being surprised at, and in fact just talked with someone today who I think she would have, when she first came to see me, she would have never said she could find somebody. And now she's able to be more open and vulnerable and intimate with them, and they with her, because she has been making those changes in herself. So again, I'm so happy you're here. Uh, Healthy intimacy is something I talk about in the online program that that's been launched. You can find that on my website. There'll be some links below as well. Your new road to self, building the self you were never allowed to have. And it is a 6-module plan, a 6-module program. You can do it at your pace. Take all the time you need. You have access to these videos and this teaching for a long time. They're exercises, tools, and things to help you become more self-differentiated, help you to become more mature, help you to change from that old dysfunctional family that's at work in you, and help you to be the self that you would like to be and want to be. Um, the and as I do as I do my talk here a little bit, then I'll have some time for a couple of questions um, at the end, and maybe I can answer some questions for you. But let me talk about some things regarding intimacy. And again, I'm just going to touch on these in this live stream, but in the workshop, or excuse me, in the online program, I go into much more depth of that. And first of all, self intimacy and intimacy with the self and intimacy with others flow from the same stream. And I believe that's a very important concept because everybody's going, how can I be more intimate with others? How can I find somebody who I could be intimate with? And I'm going, no, you're looking too far. Don't look out there. Look in here. How can I be intimate with me? Having reality, letting go of denial, being vulnerable with myself, loving myself, being open with myself, self compassionate. If I can learn to do that with me, I can learn to do that with others. And others will be attracted to the person that I am in taking care of myself. Because if I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not able to be intimate with myself, I'm going to be much more skeptical about the people that are going to be attracted to me because they're probably not going to be as healthy as I would like them to be if they're attracted to me and I don't really like myself. I don't love myself. I'm looking for someone to love me because I don't love me. If you have that kind of thinking and paradigm and subjective experience, then you're going to attract someone who's going to fit into that paradigm. And that's not who we want to be in a relationship with, because we end up having broken relationships. It doesn't turn out well. All kinds of toxic things can happen because I'm not caring and loving and intimate with me. And I certainly was not. And so remember, self-intimacy, intimacy with others flow from the same stream. And I have a module where I talk about that in much more detail. In addition, intimacy is not the same thing as intensity or fusion with another person. For those of us who grew up in dysfunctional families, we tend to, well, intimacy masquerades as fusion and intensity. It's if we equate intimacy with fusion and intensity. And the problem is that can be, as maybe many of you have realized, can be really, really difficult. It isn't intensity and fusion. It doesn't mean we can't have a period of honeymoon or some passion or falling in love. We can have those experiences,
But beyond that, what are we seeking for? And many of us have grown up that I want to be fused and it needs to be intense. If it's not intense, it's not love. If it's not fusion emotionally, it's not love. We need a whole new definition of love. Secondly, the opposite of unhealthy love is hate. And both are a pursuit of another person in an unhealthy way. Unhealthy love, this fusion and intensity, that's an unhealthy pursuit of someone to find love. Then hate is an unhealthy pursuit of another person. Just like when someone gets a divorce, it was nasty divorce. The person, let's say they are, the husband and wife have fallen out, they're mad at each other. Then the husband comes to me after the divorce and says, I just hate that woman. I will always hate her. And she was awful. Oh, and then I say, oh, so you're still married to her? And he goes, no, 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 we're divorced. And I go, no, 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 you're still married. You're still married emotionally. You're still pursuing her through hate. What you were pursuing her when you were married was another maybe unhealthy out of balance. Well, now it's an out of balance where you're pursuing her with hate and anger and resentment. And that's pursuit, folks. That is pursuing someone. We know that in family systems thinking. You're still pursuing someone when you hate them. Um, Now, I'm not saying people don't do hate-worthy things or harmful things or abusive things. Of course they do. But I don't want them stuck inside me with anger and resentment. I don't want that in my life. I want to be free from them. So again, that detachment is so important for moving on to a healthier relationships. Yeah, the opposite is really more indifference or separateness. Um, the and yet I say that in the opposite of love is indifference. But I don't want to say we don't need indifference or don't need separateness, um, or space or distance in our relationships, because we probably do need more of that in healthy relationships. And if you know other healthy couples, people that have had healthier relationships, and maybe you've seen them, watched them, they have a different dynamic than people who are in unhealthy relationships. Many times we can be prickly, we can be easily triggered, we can misunderstand real easily, we can get reactive. But people who have a healthier relationship with each other, they're not engaged in that as much. They just don't engage in that. They have a healthier balance of togetherness and separateness. They have a healthy balance of those two forces. And that's what we head towards in terms of healthy intimacy. One of the ways to achieve greater intimacy is to focus on the your restrainers to intimacy, the ones that are out of our awareness. So, in other words, we want to resolve the downsides of greater intimacy. If I were more intimate with myself or with others, what would be the downside? And those are the restraints for me being able to be more intimate. And it may not be things we're even conscious of. So, okay, if I were more intimate, what would be the downsides? Oh, well, I can think of one. I could get hurt. There's a good, and I have a lot of people who will go, oh, well, I'll get hurt. So, or I stay mad at my ex while I go into this new relationship because I never want that to happen again. So I will stay mad and angry. The problem is you're more likely to have it happen again because you're still connected to it. And you might just be recreating it over again. And so what we want to do is loosen those emotional bonds, letting those things go, letting go so that we can go on to a new relationship and it's not being fueled by unresolved attachment, because it's unresolved attachment is really what it is. I'm still attached to the ex-wife that I hate, so to speak. And if I hate them, that you're still attached to them. And I tell people, well, how about getting an emotional divorce? You've gotten a legal one, a financial one. How about we work on the emotional divorce? Because I think that could be the most important divorce you could even have, besides the money and the much, much more in terms of life satisfaction, happiness, and finding another relationship. So we want to look at the downsides of what it would mean for us to be more intimate and resolve those downsides. We also can increase our intimacy. Oh, this is always people, this is going to be a fun one. Increase your intimacy with your family of origin, externally or internally, to gain greater ability to be intimate. And I know everybody's going to say, oh, but why should I go deal with those crazy people and they were bad? Let me explain what I mean so that you don't misinterpret what I mean. I'm not saying you should go be best friends to all of your abusive family members. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if we, um, and by the way, I say, well, they are all dead. It doesn't matter whether they're dead or alive. I'm going to describe that. It doesn't matter whether they're here or whether they're not here. If we have cut off emotionally from our family of origin, that's not the same thing as no contact. That's an emotional cutoff. That the it tends to limit and make more difficult my ability to be intimate and more healthy, balanced, mature self in relationships. If I move closer to my family of origin and actually move through them, I can be much more intimate if I can go through them. Now, by the way, I'm not saying go to your family home and set your parents down and talk. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about emotionally working through the attachments you still have with your family of origin to come out on the other side, rather than running this way away from your family. Because the more we just run away from those issues, they're going to stay cemented and caught in us. We want to go through the family and past it so that this becomes far less important, or it's not a dynamic in my life. So it and so many people just want to go that way. I just want to get away from them. Okay, well, then get away from them. If they're unhealthy or toxic, or that's fine, but that doesn't mean you've resolved your issues with your family just because you're now no contact. No contact doesn't mean you're resolved. You've resolved those things. You may be in a healthier place because you may not be as abused. There may be some good things with doing that. But when you're talking about, Jerry, I want to learn how to be more intimate, well, then go back through your family and go past them rather than away from them. Because I want to grow past my family. And I talk more about that in the online program as well. Take a look at the link below and check out. There's also a free training. When you check out the links below, there's a free training. Please go and get that. It's absolutely free. 84 minutes. It will kind of give you a sense of what might be going on in the online program. Take a look at that. That's free. Enjoy that. And you can set up a time to watch that training. And that's separate from the online program. That's just a gift for you. The And so dealing with family of origin issues is a way of learning to become more intimate. Because where did we learn intimacy? Where did we learn anything about intimacy? Good, bad, indifferent, ugly, pretty. Where did we learn about intimacy? When you were growing up. You were modeled it, though it's not just modeling, it's deeper than that. But, how did dads treat moms? How did men treat women in your family? How did women treat men in your family? Who put value where? How did mom and dad talk? Did they talk about feelings? Did they ever talk about sex? Did they ever, what was their relationship like? You remember that was your first relationship that you were a part of. Your family relationships were your first relationship. And that's where you go, oh, this is what intimacy or relationships is about. Huh. Then we go out taking that into adulthood, we internalize it, take it into adulthood, and then things aren't working. And we don't know why. Why isn't this working? Um, because we haven't resolved those issues. Another point, reducing emotional reactivity and staying calm um, in a relationship is the heart of increasing intimacy. This work increases our tolerance for intimacy. Working on staying calmer and staying less reactive. Now, why is it important to stay calmer and less reactive? Just because you can appear like you're more like an adult? That's not the key to that. It's not so you appear to be more adult, though you may actually appear to be more adult by doing that, but that's not the point. Um, with If we stay more calm, if we stay less reactive and work on that, then the family of origin issues are triggered less in us and overwhelm us and cloud our thinking and our perspective. Because that family super self, which I talk about often, that we are a part of, this Wi-Fi that's going on that's a part of me, that family super self is triggered by reactivity and a lack of calmness. So if you can stay calm, stay less reactive, you then can walk and maneuver a little more carefully in an adult recovered way, because you're not being triggered by everything that went on years ago within you that's still alive in there that maybe you haven't resolved yet. So that's one way to help keep those triggerings down. So I do try to help people with calmness and reducing their reactivity. And many times it's better to do nothing than to do something. Not because doing something is bad, it's that doing nothing might give you time and help you to calm down and be less reactive. Then you might have a better outcome. Small, successful attempts at intimacy while maintaining the self builds confidence and increases the self's ability to stay connected while being yourself. When we think about intimacy, it's about I want to stay connected to the other person emotionally, but I want to also be myself. Now, that sounds easy. Just be yourself and stay connected. It's not as easy as many people think. It takes practice to do that. How can I stay connected and be me? The other thing about going through family is how can I deal with, stay connected emotionally, not as friends and let's go out and play golf or let's go to dinner. It's not that. It's staying connected emotionally while being myself and moving through this way and moving past them. I want to move past them in terms of maturity, a sense of self, more awareness to reality, and a more mature perspective and more clear headedness without all the dysfunctional noise that they are dealing with a lot of the time, that's going on with them all the time. They are activated all the time, is what I've found, especially for dysfunctional families. Achieving and finding healthy intimacy has less to do with the other person and more to do with self intimacy, self-awareness, self-definition, and self-regulation. And I kind of implied that early on with saying self-intimacy and other intimacy flow from the same stream, and they really do. So when people go, "Oh, I'm having trouble with intimacy," well, how are you having trouble with you? Oh, but I just want to talk about Jane or Bill or and how it's so hard to be intimate with them. Well, okay, we can talk about that, but you're trying to fly a 747. Excuse me. You're trying to fly a 747 and you haven't learned how to fly a single engine jet yet, a single engine plane. And so you're going, help me to be more intimate with my boyfriend or my spouse. Well, you're not even intimate with you. How? I mean, I can tell you what to do, but I think you're going to have a hard time doing it and being consistent and even understanding it fully. Not that you're dumb. I wasn't dumb. There were just things I didn't know. And maybe ignorant is the right word. And ignorance not a pejorative term. If we just don't know something, we don't know something. Well, we grew up in families where we didn't know something. We didn't get the memo. So, um, again, achieving and finding intimacy has less to do with other people or another person than it has to do with you. The last thing I wanted to share was I love Harriet Lerner's Lerner, Harriet Lerner's definition of an intimate relationship. You can find that in her great book, The Dance of Intimacy, which I would definitely recommend. I think it's a great book for intimacy. And then I even add to it quite a bit more in the online program and provide my own helps for increasing your ability to be intimate and find intimacy. Harriet Lerner states, an intimate relationship is one in which neither party silences, sacrifices, or betrays the self, and each party expresses strength and vulnerability, weakness, and competence in a balanced way. So if you want to know what an intimate relationship, that's a great description of it. That I don't betray and silence me, and I'm also able to be vulnerable, weak, competent, and in a balanced way in the relationship. And that's a systems view of relationship health, which I like the way she describes that, rather than a more individualistic view, which is I love you, you love me. Okay, now we have a healthy relationship. Well, I'm not sure that is true or always is true for sure. An intimate relationship is one in which neither party silences, sacrifices, or betrays the self for either one of them, and each party expresses strength and vulnerability, weakness, and competence in a balanced way. And I think it's definitely possible. I've seen it so many times. And in fact, I think it's achievable. I think it's something we didn't get the memo on. I think we can get the memo, um, and that there's certainly things that we need to do to mature because we're growing into this healthy relationship or healthy intimate relationship, and that I think there are certainly pathways to do that because I've seen it with people who I even thought might not get it and maybe couldn't get to that point. They have. I've been surprised I don't know how many times. And they've just said, I never knew you could feel this way. I never knew you could be this way. after working with me. And and I think again the online program, you might want to take a look at that because it does have intimacy and healthy relationships in there. And also the earlier modules prepare you for this type of definition. It prepares you to, okay, now how can I then do an intimate relationship? Um, yeah, and I think to an extent, most people suffer from arrested development. Thank you. I didn't see your name. What was that? Daniel. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, when you grow up in a dysfunctional family, you've got arrested development. I mean, and so, but here's the point. If you're going to unarrest your development, if you're going to develop, tell me how to do that. Can you tell me how to do that? And that I believe I can share with you how to do that. Because if somebody could share it with me, if I could take it in, if I can learn it, so can you. But you just don't even know. You don't know my background. You don't know what I've been through. Uh, Someday I'll write a book about all that. The because if I can do it, anybody can. Or most anybody. I know if somebody's characterologically broken, if someone's a narcissistic sociopath, they're probably not going to make a lot of development in their adult development. They're just going to keep using people as pawns because that's all they know, and they don't have the insight and ability to be able to do too much with that. So there are people who are very broken, sadly. Uh, but there are many, 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 many of us who are. There's much more possible that we could achieve with kind of the right direction, and that's what I kind of want to provide. And I've tried to provide for 45 years and put up 400 videos on YouTube and they're all free. It was my way of paying it forward. I wanted the people to have some opportunities that I didn't have. I wish I'd have had my online program 40 years ago. I wish I could have watched that. Somebody who would have done that. I really wish I could have done that. That would have probably helped me so very much. It wasn't until I was in graduate school that I began to learn more about from a great pastor, psychologist, professor who just I'm so fortunate to have met him and had him as a teacher. And every time I heard his lectures, I just thought, I'd like to be like him. What does he know that I don't know? There's things he knows I don't know. Why does he know these? How does he know these things? Where does he go read them? I want to find out. And I actually was able to find out. And I've been trying to share those things with people for 45 years. Does anyone have a question? Maybe I could do a couple questions here at the end of our excuse me, live. Sorry for the coughing. I apologize. Um, if you have a question, I could take a look and see. You could write question in caps and then have a question afterwards. Or you don't have to. If you don't want to ask a question, I just thought I'd make myself available. I wasn't able to see all of the comments as they go by. Um, the and Wavy, I think you would really enjoy the live. I'm glad you're joining. the It seemed like somebody had talked about the just question. I really can't stop getting anxious when my partner is anxious. I know you've spoken at length about it. What do I do? Oh, I think that is well. Let me give you a little brief thumbnail. If you can't stop being anxious about your partner's anxiousness, it's not about your partner's anxiousness. It's about anxiousness you learned long ago. And it's an anxiety that you're continuing to be triggered. That chronic anxiety from the past is being triggered now by your partner, spouse, or boyfriend, girlfriend. It's going to be triggered by that. Now, does that mean your spouse doesn't have anxiety? No, I'm sure they do. But do you know there's a lot of people around you who have anxiety that I would guess doesn't trigger yours? I'm just guessing. Maybe that's not true. I'm just saying. But there are people that I feel anxious around because of their anxiety. There are other people who are anxious and it doesn't trigger my anxiety because there's a story behind all this. There's a narrative, there's a whole process going on of my family of origin at work in me. So, when did you begin to learn to feel that anxiety? And when did you feel you had to respond to other people's anxiety, um, which would trigger yours? And my hunch is that was long ago. It's just now getting continues with your spouse, but it was long ago. And unpacking that and um, so that the so that we can begin to release that old pattern that's there. Because I don't think it's about your husband or your spouse. I don't think it's about it. It is a trigger, absolutely. I mean, I'm not denying but the I don't have to deny the pattern that you see. I just want to talk about their different universals underneath it to explain it. That's what I mean when I try to describe things to people. That it's not what you're saying is not true. It's absolutely true. He's anxious, you get anxious. Then my hunch is your anxiety pings him, his anxiety then pings you back, your anxiety then and we have this whole feedback loop. But that feedback loop started long ago. The other thing is, let's take a look at the downsides. If my husband were anxious and Jerry waved a magic wand and I could no longer be anxious about his anxiety, what would be the downsides? What would be the problems? And I think that could be a very important question to gain some awareness. In other words, if you stop doing it, which I'm not saying it's easy to do, but I'm saying if you could wave that miracle magic wand, what would happen if you were not? Because I know with my mom would be anxious, I would be anxious, then I'd make her anxious, she'd make me anxious. And then when I began to realize, wait a minute, if I stop being anxious, what what would be the downsides of that? Oh, she would think I wouldn't care. She would think I don't love her. She would think I'm cold and heartless. She would, oh, well, we're not even together as a couple anymore, if I talk about a relationship. And because what that does is it leaves them with the spotlight on their anxiety rather than spotlight on this pinging of anxiety. Just like when somebody comes to me and says, Jerry, um, I think you've hated me for many years, and that has hurt me so badly. And you can tell they're anxious. They want to tell me this. And I go, well, I'm so sorry you're feeling that way. That must be horrible. Um, and look what I'm doing. I'm not being pinged. I'm letting them have their anxiety. I share some empathy or understanding. Well, that must be awful. While realizing that I've never hated them, all of the I don't know where they got that. That's never been my reality. And rather than, oh, I feel ashamed or guilty, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you felt that way about me. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that. No, I'm not sorry about that. I never did it. But I am sad that you feel badly about that irrational belief. I do. That's unfortunate, but I'm not going to get anxious about it. There's no reason for me to get anxious about it. That's anxiety for anxiety's sake. I haven't done that to them. I hope that helps explain a little bit. I think I've got another question. How can you have a healthy relationship with a family who have never had healthy, intimate relationships themselves and want you as their child or grandchild to fulfill their needs for intimacy? And you're saying, how can you have a healthy relationship with that? Well, number one, their side of the tennis net is not going to be a healthy one. So we know that they're not going to have a healthy side to the relationship. So what I'm thinking of, what is a healthy relationship for me with them as they are? Immature, don't know how to do intimate relationships, needy out the wazoo, very, very needy. How can I have a relationship with them? And that's what I want to do in terms of being a mature adult. Well, I'm so sorry that I don't meet your expectations. That must be awful. What are we going to have for lunch? That's me having a healthy relationship with a dysfunctional person. Or, I hear your complaints about what I'm not doing, but I do think see it much differently than you. Now, you may think I'm trying to hurt you on purpose or being too detached or whatever. I understand that, but that's kind of where I'm at, and I hope we can continue to have a relationship. But again, I'm not going to be inviting them out to for a party every weekend. I'm not going to be best friends with them because they're not able to maintain that. So I can then just maintain my own healthy sense of self for a short time when I'm with them, just a short time. Um, and we have to think in smaller increments when you have a dysfunctional family. I'm not talking about, okay, I'm going to do this and they're all going to love me and I'm going to love them. No, no, no. They are not well. They have many, many issues and many needs. I have a few issues myself. I come with issues to this party as well. Um, and so I want to come realizing I have the issues, but that I can also take care of me, love me, protect myself, and differentiate and disagree and say, "Oh, well, I'm not, I you've never wanted to have a close relationship with your family, Jerry. You've never oh, guten Tag. Yes. You've never wanted to have a close relationship with your family. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. That must be awful to think about me that way. Huh, that must be very painful. However, I do need to share, uh, I don't know that guy. I don't know that guy who's never wanted to have a healthy relationship with his family or have a close relationship or whatever. That Jerry, I don't know. I would have always liked that. I just think it's not easy for us as a family. And that's my opinion. And you can accept that, not accept it, be mad about it, you can do whatever you want to do. But I, you know, and I can remember even talking to my own mom and saying, Mom, we don't do that well in our family. Because I know she always wanted me to be close with my brother. Well, my brother and I are just two different people. We're we were never going to be close that way. Though actually, I think when both of us gave up being close, having been pushed together by mom all those years, we actually became closer when you have that dynamic off. When you kind of accept, hey, we're two different people. So I think that, and TM, I'm glad, and Foreigner, I'm glad that I wish I could have been there 25 years ago. Wish somebody would have been there 40 years ago for me. The and I'm glad some of these statements are a help to you. I can tell my voice is just kind of having a little bit of rest. I've been doing a lot of recording lately, and my voice is kind of raspying. I want to again direct you to the online program. Get the free training. Please click like on this video. That helps with YouTube and getting videos out. If you click like, subscribe to the channel, click the bell so that you're automatically notified when I do a live or have a new video up. And all of those would be grateful. I would be grateful if you would do those things. Again, your new road to self is the online program. I think it would save you thousands of dollars and many years of therapy. Thank you so much for watching and being here today. I'll be having more live streaming. Have a great day and be wise.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jerry Wise. I'm a life and relationship coach, and this video is entitled Follow the Anxiety to Change You in the System. I've been a life and relationship coach for probably close to 45 years now, and I work on specializing in self-differentiation and family systems approach to recovery and healing. I work with codependents and families and addictions and adult children of narcissists, adult children of dysfunctional families. And this video has come out of my interaction with viewers and clients about wanting to learn more about systems feelings and how systems feelings guide and propel us in our interactions with in our relationships. And the first point that I wanted to make is we function, feel, and think and behave in an emotional relationship system, or an emotional field that includes the present and goes back to previous generations. In other words, when we do our relationships and as we interact in our relationships, it goes far beyond the present moment. We are dealing with our fight or flight system in our brain. We're dealing with the emotional memory of generations that also impact us inside. And also we are dealing with our family of origin when we interact in our relationships. And that emotional field that we are a part of can be very helpful in us identifying that, at least to some degree. Much of this emotional field is unconscious. However, we can learn to become more aware of it. Are we ever perfectly aware of it? Well, probably not. However, I think we can become more aware of it, and this can guide us in our healing and how we function in relationships and find ourselves in greater freedom, greater self-differentiation, greater calmness, and greater awareness of what's going on, which can help protect us as well as help guide us. and to help us to formulate problems as they arise. And the better we formulate these problems, the more we can resolve them for ourselves. Second of all, systems feelings are what we feel to keep us functioning in our relationships. The way our puzzle piece should fit into the system, the way we have been imprinted or have been taught, modeled, what we have absorbed to fit into our family system, our marriage, our friendship systems, our work systems. There's always an emotional process going on. And I think more companies are becoming more aware of this emotional system and how it affects production, productivity, leadership, and I consult with family businesses and also other businesses about this emotional process, which can really lead to a better solution for organizations as well as for families, marriages, relationships, because that emotional process is everywhere. And if you're stuck or you have those problems, this is a way we can begin to look past those and look beyond them and also find some real answers. So we have been taught how to, and we have absorbed how to be in our family of origin and also our other relationships, even work relationships. When we unconsciously comply, we feel certain feelings, or we don't feel certain feelings. If we always comply and are, say, codependent or we're enmeshed, and we just go along with the system, many times we can feel negative feelings, but at least we won't feel as much anxiety, let's say. And the difficulty comes when we attempt to step outside our role, our learned, absorbed functioning, then we feel certain feelings that come up to get us to go back to the way we were supposed to be functioning. It could be certainly underneath it is anxiety. I'm going to talk about this anxiety and follow the anxiety. And then the anxiety produces shame, guilt, fear, abandonment, rejection, and then that keeps us in line. Because, and I think many of us don't realize how much those feelings are a function of the system, not just a function within us. It plays a role in the system. What role does my guilt play? What role does my depression play? What role does my shame play? What role does my abandonment feelings play? Because they're all there for us to function in a certain way. When we attempt to change our role, our functioning in the emotional process in relationship systems, this provokes resistance, which will then ignite systems feelings. And the work is to overcome what we feel, and the work is to overcome what they feel or do in response to our stepping outside of our normal functioning. For example, if somebody's grown up with guilt all the time, or shame all the time, and then they become an adult and they don't want to live under just guilt and shame all the time, and that's their normal functioning. Well, guess what? If you attempt to function or to live apart from that guilt or shame, you're going to get a lot of resistance from the system. There's going to be a lot of resistance for you giving up that role. And I was just talking to a client not too many days ago, and she was talking about how difficult it was to give up her sense of guilt over her parenting or shame over how she was an imperfect parent, which most all of us are and were. some to a greater degree than others. I understand that. But then I began to ask her about, well, what would your life be like if you didn't have that guilt or shame about that? Well, of course, her first response is, oh, it'd be wonderful. I'd feel great. I would have a burden lifted. I would feel better. And then I'm going, well, I understand that would probably be the case, but that's not why you keep holding on to the guilt and shame. If you let go of the guilt and shame, what would be the downsides? And then all of a sudden we begin to realize how many ways that would impact my relationship with other people, what they would think, what they would believe, how they might view me, that I would not be remorseful. I wouldn't be the good Christian person, a parent I wanted to be, that someone might think, I don't care about my children if I don't have that shame and guilt about my parenting that was not perfect and may have been even very dysfunctional. And so I can't live with that, so I keep in my same puzzle piece in the puzzle and keep functioning as that bad parent that I was, because I can't break out of that, because how would the system adjust to that? How would my kids adjust? How would my parents adjust? How would my spouse adjust? How would everybody have to adjust if I didn't have that shame and guilt? And as a result of having that unconscious desire to not challenge everybody by my giving up shame and guilt, I just keep hold of the shame and guilt, and then I just fit into the system the same old way I always have. For example, when we resist our learned and absorbed role, let's say, for example, you and your extended family always meet on Christmas Day for lunch. But this year, you'd like to have Christmas Day for your nuclear family. And I come from a Christian background, so I tend to use Christian examples, but it could be Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, it could be any kind of holiday examples, where the family has a certain tradition and a certain expectation and role for everyone in the family. But this year, I'd like to have Christmas Day for my own nuclear family. Say the kid's mom and me and us and the kids. And that maybe I could do the extended family at some other time. As soon as you start thinking that, we start to feel anxious or we start to feel fearful. We may not even be aware of it, because a lot of systems anxiety is not conscious. We're not used to being aware of that. And we start feeling anxious or fearful about the response to your desire to differentiate from the way the family has always functioned and the way you're supposed to function in the family. And, and to differentiate from this or from the family and from this family time, which always has to be lunch on Christmas Day, or to ask what your nuclear family needs and wants, is just going to cause an uproar within the family. Your feelings of guilt, anxiety, or fear is to keep you functioning in the family the same way. Their resistance is also to keep you functioning in the same way so that there's no change. Because everybody's, at least on the surface, comfortable with the status quo. Though many times the whole family is not comfortable with that status quo. But everybody stays with it or pretends to be okay with that status quo so that they don't get rejected or accused of being unloyal or disloyal to the family or lots of other reasons. So, the anxiety plus the fear or the guilt or the shame equals systems feelings. And that anxiety produces those feelings so that you will stay in line. You ask your mom and dad and siblings, and of course, you talk about that as about making a change, and they are all very upset or resistant to that. And then you may feel hopeless, stuck, hurt, guilty, maybe shame as well. And these are systems feelings resulting from their resistance. They don't want you to change. They want you to change back and just let's do it like we've always done it every year. Are you really doing anything that's worthy of hopelessness, stuckness, hurt, guilty, or shameful? No, you're not doing anything that would initiate any of those feelings or warrant those feelings. You're simply wanting to have Christmas with your nuclear family and arrange other times in which you would be with your extended family because you would like to have that holiday yourself. And that's not illegal. It's not improper. It's not meant to hurt anyone. It's not meant to show you don't love anybody in the family. So all of those feelings are not warranted. They're systems feelings so that you will not change. That's why they're there. This last set of feelings that I mentioned are present to help you navigate back to the functioning you have had in the past of either being enmeshed, over-functioning, a caretaker, or some other roles that it could be. Scapegoat, victim, golden child. There's all kinds of roles we play within the family. The one who's oversensitive, the one who causes problems, whatever role we have been cast in, there will be systems feelings if we attempt to step out of that. Remember, those feelings are not true feelings that fit you being ashamed of something you've actually done or guilt over something you should even feel guilty for. They're there so that you will function and function in the emotional process of the family in a certain way. And in fact, their purpose is for you to change back and to be the way and do it the way we've always done it. The extended family's anxiety regulates your anxiety, and your anxiety regulates theirs. And anxiety, this chronic anxiety, which is underneath most relationship systems and goes back generations and generations about how we function, that we are connected in that way in which my anxiety regulates yours, your anxiety regulates mine. To self-differentiate is to begin to detach from that anxiety system so that I'm not just always pushing and pulling as a result of that anxiety connection that we have. And all families have this connection. We as human beings live in a limbic, way back here, this part of the brain back there, live in a limbic world run by, in my notion, anxiety or calmness, feelings or thoughts, reactivity or response. And we live in this limbic world. And so I see most everything through a telescope or through a viewing binoculars or glasses that is either calmness or anxiety. And I think it's a good model to have because it will guide you as to how to function and navigate your own life in this calmness or anxiety system that we're all in. I have really found the anxiety calmness model of viewing relationships to be very helpful. As a result, I try to follow the anxiety. Many people tend to follow the problems or figure out why the problems are happening or figure out why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. Maybe I'm feeling what I'm feeling because I've been triggered by the anxiety in the system, and these feelings are to keep me in line. And so it seems even more helpful to go even underneath further and see the anxiety and how it plays, and to follow the anxiety. I think that can even be more helpful in systems and in growing myself up, learning how to operate with other people. Think of your family or your relationships hooked up to an electrical grid. I try to observe where the electricity or anxiety, the chronic anxiety, and there's acute anxiety and chronic anxiety. If someone comes to me and says, you're going to be soon meeting your favorite celebrity, I might tend to feel more anxious. And that would be more acute anxiety. Chronic anxiety is the anxiety that I got from my family of origin that is always operating at a low level or a high level, depending upon what I've learned, what I've absorbed, and what level my parents experienced in terms of chronic anxiety from their parents. And that chronic anxiety is often unconscious. The acute anxiety is conscious. And if we try to observe where the electricity or anxiety flows, and we watch it within the system, and also can watch if there are any circuit breakers to this anxiety. And I'm going to give you an example today of what I mean by that, which may help you understand what I'm talking about more. I watch for surges and even flows of this anxiety or this electricity, or reduce need for the surges, or reduce need for the anxiety. And the more efficient, or I think differentiated, with power we are, the less need for the greater surge of anxiety, if we can be more efficient. And I think of self-differentiation as operating more efficiently in an emotionally or anxiety-driven system, as all relationships are. And in fact, we know when there's a dyad, which is two people, a dyad, two-person relationship system, the dyad is always going to be chronically unstable. It's going to be stable for a while, but eventually it's going to fall out. There'll be too much anxiety that happens, and then we either have too much togetherness or too much separateness. And then we'll add a third person to balance out this anxiety, and that's the triangle. So remember that a dyad, a two-person system, is almost always chronically unstable. And in fact, even organizational systems, marriages, tend to be chronically unstable, but they will keep trying to stabilize themselves with anxiety and systems feelings. So, the more efficient or calm, the more self-differentiated we are, the less we reinforce the surges, and the more we can be a circuit breaker for the system and for the electrical grid, which I want to be less of a conduit for this chronic anxiety. And if I can see the anxiety, I can begin to be more of a circuit breaker. If I get focused on the problems or the content, I tend to be more of a conduit for the anxiety. If I can follow the anxiety, then I can tend to be more effective in reducing the anxiety in the system, and certainly reducing it for me, which is what I think is my goal. Let's talk about John and his mom. And sometimes people will say, well, Jerry, you're always using moms as the problem. No, I use dads, I use sisters, brothers, but I mean, we have moms and dads and brothers. You could put John and Dad. You could put mom and her daughter. You can put the daughter and her dad. I mean, I'm just using this as an example. John and his mom. John has always had anxiety with his mother's enmeshment, attachment, intrusiveness, lack of boundaries, and low respect for him as an adult, treating him like a child. And again, we tend to treat our children, our adult children, like children because of our anxiety. Do you know that? That's why we don't grow up. We still have that chronic anxiety, and then we'll treat our children like they're still children rather than allowing them to be adults because of our chronic anxiety that many times we're not even aware of or haven't become aware of. And so, John's chronic systems anxiety is pretty high when dealing with his mother. It always has been, since as a child, even now as a 39-year-old adult. For many years, he was not aware of this chronic anxiety. He just called it, I just have a frustrating relationship with mom. I mean, that's the best way he could, that our personalities clash, or we just don't agree on a lot of things, or I'm unhappy with how she treats me. And then she would say she's unhappy with how John treats her. And that's about as far as the insight would go, and not realizing, we have this underlying anxiety that we don't know how to manage. Neither John nor his mom know how to manage it. John has just moved and is living in a foreign country, which raises his mom's anxiety, and so she becomes even more attached to John. And she tries to attach to John more because she's more worried and more anxious about his living situation. She asking John, well, where do you live? Is it a good spot in the city? Do you worry about getting robbed? How much are they paying you for this new job? And of course, when mom's chronic anxiety is expressed through these questions, intrusiveness and enmeshment, then it raises John's chronic anxiety, and then he wants to hang up, lash out, get reactive, mom, it's not your business, or not call at all and talk to mom, or comply and just, I'll just try to keep the anxiety down, I'll just answer her questions, and but I don't really want to, but I'll just do that to keep the peace. Or I'll just cut off from mom. I'm so tired of mom asking me all these questions. I don't want to talk about those things. And there are times that I would certainly do that with my own mother, because my own mother would do that out of her anxiety. And she would ask questions that it's like, what am I? And in one of my videos, I think I talk about the haircut situation. She even would become anxious about my hair. Now, mind you, I don't have a lot of hair. But if it wasn't cut, she would become anxious about it. And it's like, oh gosh, there we got to go again. We got to deal. Why does she care what my hair looks like, or what other people might think about my hair? And I talk about that whole situation in that video. And so we want to do something to try to resist that enmeshment or resist the anxiety that's in the system. But John, like myself, still looking for loving, mature connection with mom, acceptance, a nice, easy adult relationship with her, which may be a fantasy, and probably often is, for himself and for her. I'm not just blaming mom. I'm not just blaming mom as the whole problem. I'm saying we have fantasy notions for ourselves and for our parents or for others in relationships. He still needs her love and acceptance, looking for a mom that he's always wanted. And you should honor your father and your mother. So we have that whole dynamic that kind of goes in there. And we will tend to sanctify family relationships. And John says, Mom, stop it. I'm tired of all these questions. And Mom goes, well, okay. Leaving the blame for the problem where? With John. Well, okay. If you're going to be this way. And so many times with narcissists and with other people and an unstable dyad, people will not be aware of how their anxiety is causing them and compelling them to act. And then when others get frustrated and they are reactive, guess where the problem falls? With the person that is reactive. Oh, well, you're getting all oversensitive and reactive now. Yeah, but you've just been crazy making with your anxiety that you're not managing. So let's follow the anxiety with John and his mother. John already starts out with a certain level of chronic anxiety in that he feels obligated to call Mom. Doesn't always really enjoy it, doesn't really know what to talk about, but she is my mom, so I feel obligated to call her. If he doesn't call her, he feels anxious. And in fact, that anxiety starts coming out in guilt, fear, or obligation feelings, which are systems feelings. And if he doesn't call her, he feels anxious. He feels anxious when he does call her. So he's stuck in anxious or anxious. And that's going into the conversation. Asking himself, what will she do and what will she ask? And I wonder what it's going to be this time. And I'm tired of doing that. I hope she doesn't do it. I just hope she does. I'll cross my fingers and just hope she doesn't ask those questions so I don't have to deal with that discomfort or anxiety. And what will I do? How will I react? Will I get overreactive? Will Mom, have her anxiety, then my anxiety will be pinging, and then we'll get into this reactivity dance that we do. And by the way, I might mention a great book called The Dance of Anger by Harriet Lerner, which talks about that pinging process. The dance of anxiety, she has the dance of fear, and the dance of intimacy. And she talks about this dance because it is a dance. And if we can see it as a dance, we can begin to change ourselves in that dance. John tends to be very other focused on Mom. What is she going to do? What is she going to ask? And not very self-focused in terms of his anxiety going in or his anxiety while he's talking with her. He's also, just like Mom, not self-defined or self-aware. Which if we can become more self-defined and more self-aware, we will have less anxiety, we will be triggered less, and we'll also kind of know what we're doing to navigate this relationship. John has not defined for himself what type of relationship he wants to have with Mom, what frequency, and the nature of the relationship he wants with his mother. He doesn't know. His mom is also not well defined. She's just acting out of habit, anxiety, routine, and this chronic anxiety. That's how you do the relationship. Not much awareness, just a part of the way the emotional system in this family has always worked. When neither are self-defined, the system and system's feelings will govern and regulate the relationship. Let me say that again. When neither party are self-defined, the system, the emotional system, the system's feelings will govern and regulate the relationship. much to the unhappiness of both people. I wanted to mention at this point, I've got a workshop coming up July 17th. It's called Standing Strong as an Adult Child of a Narcissist. That's on July 17th, 2021. I hope you will join me on that Saturday. It's going to be on Zoom. You can sign up on my website. There's also a link below in the description. So, John calls Mom. Mom is very anxious and eager to hear from her son because she's still worrying about him. She worries incessantly about her 39-year-old son. Lots of anxiety. Out of her anxiety, she pulls a mom move and asks about his move, his job, his salary, where he's living, who he's meeting. These are all questions to manage her chronic anxiety. The information is not so critical. It's to manage the anxiety in her. Mom bores down in John's life to relieve her anxiety, while the result is racing John's anxiety because he's not happy with these questions. He doesn't like answering all these things. He's not sure that he wants to tell Mom all of this, but he's not sure. He's not defined in the relationship. And so it's just this pinging between Mom and he. John came in anxious and now feels stuck with Mom and his anxiety, and it increases as a result of these questions starting to come. Neither Mom nor John recognize the flow of anxiety between them. And due to their unawareness, neither know how to function or what to do other than react to the anxiety in the system. They don't know how to control it, deal with it, manage it, see it, watch it. They are just, well, Mom's being difficult and now John's being difficult because he doesn't want to answer the questions. So, that's kind of the superficial layer of understanding that they have. John's being not kind and answering my questions, and Mom's not being kind by being nibby and nosy and enmeshed, etc., etc. And so what am I going to do? And neither of them know what to do about it. They just try to limp along and just kind of have this relationship. Out of John's ignited limbic system and chronic anxiety and his anxiety-filled relationship with Mom, he becomes reactive and overwhelmed. Mom also becomes reactive and overwhelmed because John's not answering the questions. So now both are going up in terms of their anxiety. And I'm telling you, it's not the questions or the problem that's the problem. It's this underlying anxiety that's not being managed that becomes the problem. He feels forced to do something reactively to ease his tension. Again, which he may not even be aware of. He tells her, well, Mom, I gotta go. I just wanted to call and see ya. And proceeds to get off the call quickly. He really doesn't know what to do, but to cut off from her. I just need to stop this. I just need to stop. And again, a cutoff, an emotional cutoff, is a distancing out of my immaturity. Again, going no contact is not a distancing out of my immaturity. That's a distancing out of my maturity. Cutoff is a distancing out of immaturity. To manage my immaturity. John does not address the question that Mom is asking. She doesn't address those questions, or the pattern, or boundaries, or his wishes or wants, or self-definition, or any of that. He doesn't do any of that. He just wants to get away. Now Mom's anxiety is triggered more, and she goes to John's dad and complains how oversensitive, impolite, uncooperative, and that John was on the phone. She also tells him that she is upset with John over his standoffishness. And she dumps her anxiety where? to Dad. Now we have a tension and anxiety between John and Mom. Mom then goes to Dad, tells him all about it. He then absorbs the anxiety from her. And again, chronic systems anxiety plus issues equals a disturbance in the force, a disturbance in the system. Issues minus chronic or systems anxiety equals self-differentiation and differentiated presence. So guess what? Dad now feels he should calm Mom down because Mom's upset. Their son has not worked well with Mom in her questioning because of her anxiety. And Dad absorbs Mom's anxiety. He borrows it. He takes it from her. He becomes a peacemonger, not a warmonger, but a peacemonger. So he and she can get along better. Dad and Mom can get along better. And Dad drinks more to take care of and reduce his increased systems anxiety. And in some ways, he now absorbs his wife and his son's anxiety. Now it's all inside him. And he will act out, drinking more, being more frustrated, maybe more sullen, maybe more withdrawn, but at least tries to calm down Mom so that he and her can at least have some level of stableness. A day later, Dad calls and talks to John. Now, you're watching this anxiety and how it all moves. He then talks to John to try to get John to cooperate or accept his mother's behavior or her questions, stating, well, she's your mother, John. Mothers worry about their kids, so he normalizes Mom's anxiety, Mom's questioning. Mom only cares about you. Why do you want to hurt your mom so much? So he then, backdoor in a triangulated way, tries to get John to behave in a way to reduce Mom's anxiety. But deep down, John has the sense that it's not Mom caring about him so much, but caring about her own worry and anxiety and making herself feel better. And he has a sense of that, and he doesn't like that. John caves in and becomes a peacemonger like his dad, and promises Dad he will call Mom and answer all her intrusive questions out of anxiety, her anxious questions, to ease Dad's anxiety because he believes Dad drinks because of Mom. And he has bought that lie. And so, I don't want Mom to cause Dad more upsetness because he'll drink more. Now, John has the hot potato of systems anxiety. So now it's gone from John and Mom, and John started with some anxiety, John and Mom, Mom to Dad, Dad to John, and now John's going to be talking to Mom. And this hot potato of anxiety is moving all around. He calls Mom, apologizes to her, answers her questions. Mom shares her worry and anxiety. John reassures her and absorbs her anxiety by reassuring her, no, it'll be okay, everything will be fine. The status quo is maintained, the equilibrium is reestablished, the same amount of systems anxiety is reestablished in Mom, Dad, and John. There's been no change. It's just been hot potatoed around. No circuit breakers were implemented with the goal of lowering the system's anxiety in any of the parties involved. Well, what would have been some circuit breakers to reduce individual systems anxiety for anyone in the system, or at least for John? John could have made the move, Mom, I will be happy to answer your questions when it's necessary or when I would like to, stating that in a calm, matter-of-fact way. But I'd like to talk to you about other things today, Mom. Can we talk about some other things? How are you and Dad doing? How are things going at home? Dad could use a circuit breaker. He could tell his wife, you know, honey, I know you and John can work that out. Mom could have said, if there was some self-differentiation or maturity or growth or wanting to learn more, I know I get too worried and I become motherly, John, and you are an adult. You can share those feelings or those things with me when you want to. John could have said to Dad, as a John to Dad move, you know, Dad, I have no power over Mom's anxiety or her need to know questions. And there's no real need for me to answer all of her questions just to make her calmer. So Dad, just ask Mom to talk to me about it. And he detriangulates. And I remember even with my own son, because I know how difficult it is to have a child, and those of you who are parents who have adult children, children who are adults, you know how difficult it can be to kind of stop parenting. You know, really, parenting is done when they become an adult. We now are still their father, their mother, we're blood related, and we may have that kind of relationship, but we're adults to adults now. They don't need me parenting now, and it's often not welcomed. And so we as parents have to grow just as they have to grow up. And the more we grow up, the more they can grow up. The more they grow up, the more we grow up. And so, you know, I would say to my own son or Andrew, you know, all I want to do is give you advice. Just ignore what I'm saying. It's just a habit. So I know I give you advice, but pay it no mind. Now I've just taken the power out of it and the anxiety out of it. Now if I give advice, it's just, I recognize it's just blah, 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 blah. I said, that's just what I normally do. I'm just used to doing that. But pay it no mind, Andrew. I'm just being overly fatherly. And that takes the power out of that over-seriousness relationship we might have as parents, especially when our children are adults. I'm going to be sharing more about systems anxiety and systems feelings in the future and in future videos. I would suggest that you watch True Feelings versus Systems videos. True Feelings versus Systems Feelings video that I have on my YouTube channel. I hope you'll join this YouTube channel for, I think, $1.99 a month. It helps me produce more videos if you would do that. You can go to my website and rent and purchase videos and workshops I've done in the past. Remember the workshop coming up on the 17th, 2021, on a Saturday on Zoom. Please join up and join me for that workshop. I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day and be wise. Hey, hi everyone. My name is Jerry Wise. I'm a life and relationship coach. I've been helping people for 45 years and helping them with their relationships. And I use the deep well of Bowen family systems theory to help them to become mature, to become more of a self, to be more self-differentiated. I work with codependents, adult children of alcoholics, adult children of narcissists, and work with families and couples to help them resolve their issues. I hope you'll join my YouTube channel. Click the join button. You could also click the bell, which then will send you out the videos whenever I produce a new video. I hope you'll do that as well. And please become a member of the YouTube membership there. It's very inexpensive, and there's some exclusive content on there for you that's not one of the free videos, but exclusive content. One of the quotes that I often say, and you've maybe heard it some other places, which is observe, not absorb. And that's what we tend to do in relationships, is that we tend to absorb the feelings of others. We absorb the system's feelings. We absorb the emotional dynamics that are going on in the relationship, in our families, in our marriages, in our friendships. We tend to absorb those. And that creates lots of problems for us because we'll tend to be more reactive and have more difficulties. Too often, those of us who are codependent and those who are enmeshed with dysfunctional families absorb the feelings of others, which causes reactivity, fogs up our thinking and our intentional actions, and worsens the enmeshment and the reactivity within the system. And I think in other videos I've described this dynamic. So when we are interacting with people such as our spouses, families, co-workers, and friends, we want to not focus so much on our feelings, but on our thoughts and intentions, values, principles, and expressions of self-definition, of declaring self. If you're going to deal with your emotions with those who are safe to deal with your emotions. Coaches, therapists, maybe even a friend or a spouse who is mutually respectful of you and who has a warm relationship with you. Those are the kinds of safe relationships we want to deal with our feelings, versus going to a narcissistic parent and telling them how we feel. They're not interested in how we feel. They don't feel that empathy, and they're not going to be your feelings are not going to be of great help in the relationship dynamic. It probably will cause more reactivity within you and with them if you start sharing your feelings like they should be accepted or respected, or even more of our neurotic friends or our neurotic people that are in our lives. And so we want to do feelings work, which is very important for those of us who are recovering, very important to do, but we want to do it in a safe environment. So I don't go into highly charged situations and make sure I get my feelings out there. What I want to make sure I do is I get my intentions, my values, my choices, my principles, and those things expressed, versus let me share with you all my feelings, because that will tend to ramp up the reactivity that occurs. When relationships are calm and warm, mutually respectful, this creates far less anxiety and less reactivity. We're then free to share all of ourselves. But when we're dealing with difficult relationships, often dysfunctional families, etc., then we want to do that in a different way. When relationships become highly charged, then it is most important we resist absorbing the system's feelings, which are produced by the relationship system. And you can hear more about that in other videos. I would recommend Calmness is Everything, Staying Calm in Difficult Situations. You can see those listed in my YouTube channel and on those playlists. When things are more highly charged, we have been trained by our relationship systems growing up to absorb these feelings and to absorb these systems' feelings of guilt, shame, hurt, sadness, anger, fear, many feelings like those. And we are to absorb those and then react or respond accordingly. So if you feel guilty and have this system's guilt or guilt that is created in the system, then you're supposed to react or respond in a certain way, even if the guilt or the shame is totally unwarranted and not even rational. In reality, we are primed to absorb the feelings of others. If we grew up in dysfunctional families, we are primed to absorb the feelings of others. And this feels like a normal, natural state to us and for us. We resist absorbing the feelings of others and the system by focusing on your thoughts and not on your feelings, because they will mislead you in this interactional, transactional, interpersonal relationship. And they will create reactivity. And that reactivity keeps the status quo. Staying calm and being yourself then disrupts the status quo for you. It might also disrupt it for them, but it's for the sake of ourselves in an important way of maturing. Continue to speak for yourself while pushing through the anxiety, guilt, shame, hurt, that we learn to push through those and actually kind of ignore them if we can, kind of set them to the side, because they're not real, they're not rational, they're created by others or in the system. We want to practice and prepare ourselves so we can remain calm, self-focused. We want to be clear. We want to be focused on what we want to say or communicate. We also can prepare ourselves by anticipating the responses of others and what you will say and do in response to those responses. So we can prepare that by doing that little dialogue within our own head or on paper. If you say this, what do you anticipate them saying back? Then what would you say? Then say that, what would you anticipate about them saying back? Then you would say this. And so you're training yourself to stay mature in a highly charged relationship interaction. And I also suggest to clients that they be a broken record. In other words, we want to stay very focused on the message that we wish to communicate and not get off on all the other issues that will draw me into the family system again, draw me into the relationship system in a unhealthy way. We may want to stop the empathy, which is, I'm feeling and sensing they're feeling hurt. I'm feeling and sensing they're getting angry. I'm feeling and sensing their displeasure. This empathy often triggers this absorption where we'll absorb their feelings. And then we are now off balance. And the whole system wants you to be off balance so it will maintain the status quo. And this is so important that we practice staying calm. We don't have to stay calm perfectly, but we really do want to stay calm as we possibly can, because we're less likely to get triggered, we're less likely to be reactive. And primarily, stop dealing with their feelings. Deal with your thoughts and what you wish to communicate. Look at the system process and not the content. For example, a parent says to you, "Well, why did you buy that foreign car?" Remember, when they say that, it's not about the foreign car. It's not about the car. It's about them controlling or doing what they think is best for you in an intrusive way versus a respectful and self-differentiated way. In other words, I'm not happy with you buying a foreign car, so you should not be buying a foreign car. Well, that's a blurring of our boundaries as selves, and that's that enmeshment. If I don't like it, you shouldn't like it. That's enmeshment. We do not have to be the same. We do not have to share the same views. You can also tend to pretend that others are someone like a store clerk or a neighbor. Go and pretend this is a neighbor you're talking to and that you're not producing all these feelings inside of them. They may have feelings, but you're not producing them. And I don't want them to produce those feelings in me. I want to resist that. Stay focused on what you need and what you want to share, not how they want to shuffle the emotional system to get you to comply. I wanted to give you an example today that might be of help in this regard. I had someone that I was talking to, let's call him Doug, and he has his family. This is a very, very large and enmeshed family. And in fact, it was so controlling and so enmeshed when he grew up that he couldn't even hardly have friends. He could do nothing outside the family dynamic. Family togetherness is worshipped at the highest value above any individual or self-differentiation in the family. That is looked down upon. That we are all one as a family is what's critical. And that you only focus on your family first, no one else. And of course, that kind of view, those kind of views and those kind of difficulties can cause problems if you get married. Because then the family is number one, the wife or the spouse is number two. And then they feel that way. And so the relationship system in the family starts rippling out to spouses and kids that this is the primary thing and you're a secondary thing. And there are lots of marital conflicts over that very issue. He started and decided he wanted to attend fewer family events. It had just been overwhelming because there was always intrusive questions. There was always enmeshment going on. Everybody had an opinion about everything he was doing. There was lots of shaming and guilting and all kinds of things. And he was just tired of it. And he said, I just can't do this. I've got to find myself. Well, that's not something the family's going to help him with. His sister would shame him about not attending these family events. His mom would feel hurt about him not attending these events. His brother would be confused and upset that he wasn't attending. And so all of those systems feelings they were having, he wasn't causing. He was just wanting to be himself and didn't want to be enmeshed. But that upsets everybody else because this is what you should be doing. Doug was asked by his sister Karen why he doesn't have his young children join her Zoom call with a Bible study with every Sunday with all the cousins, etc. And certainly that's a nice notion to have a Bible study for all the cousins and siblings attend. But the purpose was to reinforce the family's enmeshment, not to simply learn about the Bible. And he knew that. He knew that was the way to get everybody more fused and more connected for a good reason. But it still had the effect of being enmeshing. And she said, well, all the other cousins are doing it, which Doug knew that the other siblings were doing it, but they did it so they wouldn't upset Karen or mom and dad. And so they would avoid conflict. He did not wish to do it for several reasons. And he either felt compelled to get angry with Karen for her pressuring him to do it, or defensive and wanted to give her all the reasons that he didn't want to do it, or ignore her and not return her calls at all. And I think all of those are kind of reactive responses to what's going on in the relationship. And the option C or D is not being reactive while being yourself. So all of those are reactive responses. Getting angry, being defensive, avoiding and not calling back. That's kind of passive. All of those are out of reactivity. And so we were practicing how he could interact in the family in a more mature way and being more of an adult, whether they liked that or not. He was already doing something whether they liked that or not. He was not as attending as many family gatherings. In this situation, he could practice more about how he can interact with them as more of an adult. And so he set up and we practiced. He knew he was going to get the call. Karen, I don't think me and the kids will be joining you on the Sunday Zoom calls, but thanks for inviting us. And she would ask, but why not? A guilt question. That's to raise the guilt. because this is just not something I wish to do right now with my sons and and on Sundays. I don't wish to do that. That's not my preference. But all the other siblings are doing it, Doug. Shaming statement. You should be ashamed that all the other siblings are doing this. Why aren't you doing it, Doug? Well, and Doug could say, well, I'm sure the other siblings will be doing it, and that's great, Karen, but I choose not to at this time. And again, his thought is, I don't have to do what everybody else is doing to make everybody happy. I don't have to do that. Well, I just don't know why you're pulling away from the family. The family has always been so important to us, and that mom and dad taught us there's nothing more important than family. Another shaming comment, that I should shame you about how you view families. Well, Karen, I realize family is important, but I have my own family now, and I want to stay connected with all of you. I need some space for my own life and the life of my family. I hope the Zoom calls go great, Karen. I hope it works out well. Well, Doug, maybe some of the other siblings can convince you about having everyone attend. And again, he could predict all of these responses. And then he can practice what he can say in response to those. A response, not a reactivity. Well, it sounds like I may have disappointed you, Karen. I don't think any other siblings will be able to change my mind. And again, I hope you have great calls. And hey, Karen, how's your husband? And then you move on to another subject. And what Doug was learning to do was to keep one foot nailed to the floor. This is what I'm going to do. Accepting that Karen can have her own views about all of this, how she views family, how she views these calls, what she wants, what she thinks is right. She can have all those views, but I can have all of mine too. He stayed focused on that. He did not get into his feelings, though he had some anxiety and coming up, but he pressed through that or ignored that. And he ignored that he was hurting or pulling out some shame or guilt from Karen. He ignored that. We want to let the system's feelings go right through us and not absorb us. So when she gives a shaming statement, it goes right through. When she asks a question that's guilt producing, it goes right through. Build your confidence that you are not causing her to feel hurt or upset or confused. She is causing these feelings within herself. You are not causing them. Because I don't want to join the calls does not mean I'm hurting you. Hurt, as I mentioned as a quote I have up on my Facebook, feeling hurt is a choice. If you choose to feel hurt by that, that's okay if that's what you choose to feel, but I'm not doing that. If you feel I should be guilty about not doing these calls, it doesn't mean that I am guilty. I'm just making another choice. I am doing nothing wrong. So the guilt is irrational. The shame is irrational. And that you're hurting others is irrational. But that's the system's feelings that keeps us clumped up with the enmeshed family. Remember, your feelings of shame, guilt, pressure, being difficult are not true feelings. They are produced by the system to get you to stay in your role in the family and operate as we have always operated as a family, in an enmeshed way. I hope you will click subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I hope you will follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I want to thank you for joining me today. Have a great day and be wise.